So here I am going in with the line art. I forgot to push the time lapse at first, so you missed me like finagling with the perspective that I stole from a room, and then I gave up on the perspective when I realized my vanishing point wasn't actually in the middle, and all of my lines were going off in random directions, but that's fine. I sort of adjust it as I go. It kind of looks like perspective. I'm doing my usual line art. I've got two line art layers, one for the room itself and then one for the objects in the room, so I can keep those straight lines and then erase as I put objects on top of it. I'm using a pen on Clip Studio that you can download. It's called the Good Pen. All you have to do is look up Good Pen. You'll find it. It's a good pen. That's all there is. I usually use it. And then you'll see once I finish this line art, I'm going to be using my flats on a layer below the line art. To do my flats, I've set the line art itself to be the reference layer. You can find that. It's a little button. It kind of looks like a windmill. And then what you want to do is you want to go into your pen you're using to fill in the line art. And you want to go to the settings, anti-overflow. Do not cross lines of reference layer. And so what's going to happen is as you fill in your line art or fill in your colors, it's going to use that reference layer of the line art, and as long as the center of your pen does not cross the line art in the reference layer, the fill will stay within the bounds of that line art, and it's really good. It makes it a lot quicker because you're not having to go back and erase any overflow. So I'm finishing up the characters here. There's June, there's Andrew and Indy have like matching necklaces that Aster wanted me to remember to put in. There's Tally. Tally looks like really super serious about her job as being a Christmas tree. And then when I do Greta, I'm gonna finagle Greta a bit because I think I got the perspective on their body wrong, and also I forgot their other arms, but they don't need those arms. So to distract from the fact that I think I got the perspective on their body wrong, I'm just gonna give them prettier hair. It's fine. Yeah, fix the head size, foreshortening, going to do the snow globe there. What I do to color in is I'm going to put my flats on a layer below all the colors here, and I'm going to put any shading I do on top of the line art, so it makes a really hazy effect. Here's me going in with the lights. I'm going to flash between blue lights and white lights a few times as I try to decide. Here's me doing all the objects. All the objects are going to be on a layer together because I can just adjust them as I go, and then all the room itself is going to be in a flats layer. Here's the blue. I use the blue so I can just see where the gaps are in my coloring, make sure I get all the colors in. I've just picked colors from art of the characters. I have a pattern brush that I use for June's flannel there, and I've still got it set to the reference layer so I can change the rotation angle on the pattern brush, and it sort of looks like the pattern is going along with the folds. It looks really cool. Really good effect. I like it. I'm just coloring all these objects. Most of the colors don't stay. It's just so I can get colors down. See, look, there's the flannel. Ah! I'm going to do a trick with the screen later. You'll see I just like put in a photo and then I like paint fire over top of it and turn it blue. So it's just a blue fireplace, but it's on the TV. Fancy. There's me finishing up the colors of the characters. When I start to do the colors of the room itself, I'm actually picking from a like modern interior design thing. The colors of the room don't stay. It's mostly just so I can get levels of like which things are darker, which things are lighter, what's the sort of general tones. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the entire room, not the characters though, just the room, with some overlay layers to adjust the colors. I do the overlay over the characters and the objects later, but not now. At the moment, I've got a screen layer on the very top of all of my layers, and the screen layer is sort of that teal color, very, very low opacity over the top of the composition, and I've got a layer that's got set to multiply with an indigo color set to low opacity, airbrushed over the bottom of the composition, so the composition sort of like is brightest along that wall and it sort of follows in that arch shape. And everything closest to the viewer is darkest. And then I'm going to go in shadows with a sort of oil, just like a soft oil brush, so I can push and pull the shadows as I go. I've got 2 multiply layers. They're set to, I'm using a blue to do all the shadows. And like the deepest shadows are going to be things like closest to the viewer again, like the furniture's shadow, or the shadows of the furniture. Those are all pretty dark. All the objects have like shading on them. They're all casting shadows. I'm using the top corner as my focal point for where the light's coming from. So it's all coming, like all the shadows are being cast sort of towards the viewer a bit. And then all of my lights, I have a layer set to glow dodge, and that's on top of everything, and that's where I put all my glowy lights. So I mostly just shade every object one at a time, and when I start to do the highlighting, I'm still doing that add glow layer, and I'm going to use, for hair, I'm going to use a brush specifically for hair, and I'm going to use that same brush on the wreath later, so the wreath has a hair texture as well. And then for most of everything else, the highlights are going to be done with a brush that is an oil brush, and it has a hard side and a soft side. So it's sort of like, it has that like hard edge, and you can really see it on like the ornaments there, on the table, and it sort of like fades into a soft side. That's how you want your highlights to be. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight everything. Most objects are going to be highlighted with that cyan color, like a really vibrant version of it. Everything that's yellow is highlighted with a yellow, and everything that's red is highlighted with a purple, so it just looks like the light is making the red objects more saturated, because if I were to use the blue on red objects, they would just look like white and desaturated. And I didn't want that, I want saturation. So I used the magenta on the red objects. You'll already see where I started to go in on the ribbons. The ribbons was the most time-consuming part, with that like sort of H-shaped highlight on ribbons. And I go through and I do all of the ribbons across the window there. And like you'll see me go in and I'll do a lot of adjusting. It might flash a few times as I change like, oh, there it flashed. As I change like the levels of my screen, my multiply, and my overlay layers. I do have an overlay over the characters and objects now, so everything has that sort of bluey glow to them. And then I cast some light on the ground, make sure all of my shadows are casted on the ground, make it really sort of dramatic. There's me finishing up Greta's dress, and then I go back in and I sort of airbrush over the line art itself to make the line art colored, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, Merry Christmas!